we're going to be doing a collaborative piece of work, a collaborative mural. And we're going to make a big giant tree. Each student is going to get a 6x9 section of that tree, and it's going to be a lot like a puzzle piece. Some of the requirements in the assignment is the tree has to be inked, the bird has to be inked, but the bird also has to be colored. How you're going to color that is going to depend on the student, what they like. So it could be watercolor, color pencil, pastels. It could also be a combination of watercolor and color pencil because those work really well together. So once you have your section of the tree and you have the bird that you selected, you're going to do a couple of sketches and drawings and figure out, the form and shapes of that bird. And once you get a better handle on it, you're going to do your sketch. Still got a little bit of coffee on it, but this is my sketch for the bird. Now, when I ink, I'm going to have this as my reference as well as a photograph. And the reason I'm going to have this as well as a photograph is because you can see a lot of my sketch marks and my sketch lines that are in here for building out this bird. And I want to keep those sketch lines in the final. I don't want this to be a super clean, super neat ink drawing, a very technical drawing. I want it to have a little bit of a personality in the inks, right? So I want to make sure that I try to maintain that in the inking process. So I'll have this as well as a photograph that I'm referencing when I ink. Now, a couple of things. When you ink, always have some kind of paper that you can test your inks on, that you can practice hand strokes. If you're not sure about the width of the ink, so if you're using a multi-liner pen, these come in a bunch of different widths, and you want to make sure that you have the right type of thickness for what you want to achieve. The other width options you guys have is you can ink using a quill, so you just dip this in ink. The nice thing about this is the more pressure you add, the thicker the line that you'll get. You can get a line going from thick to thin. But if I have to do some very fine lines, some very fine details, I want to use this because I'm going to have the most control over it. If I'm going to do anything that is a straighter line or I want a consistent thickness to it, I'll use the appropriate pen because that would be the right tool. So usually when I'm inking, I'm not using one or the other, I'm using both. The other option is to use a brush for inking. All three of these create a distinct mark. When it's appropriate, you can use all three. So in this case, if I needed to draw the thicker lines for the tree, I can do that. So here is my section of the tree and my sketch transferred onto the watercolor paper. So for instance, these branches are going to be fairly thick because we're going to have them up on a wall. We're going to see them at a distance. We're going to want a nice holding line. I probably wouldn't use this because this brush is too thick. If I did want to use a brush for any of it, I would use a much thinner one. But when we're looking at our drawing, we want a nice dark holding line. We want to be able to see this from a distance, and we want to be able to create separation. So that's one of the keys to the project. But always have your reference, always have your sketch, always have something to warm up on and practice on. So for the next portion of this demo, you're going to see a sped up film of inking, and then you'll see the coloring process, which will also be sped up. I will do a voice overlay on that, and then we'll have the final product. And again, this is a demo for everyone to watch and approach for drawing their bird section of the tree. So a couple of things. Let's talk about the process. So number one, in the slides, I have some charts and graphics on there how to break down the bird. The most important thing I would say is practice drawing over and over again until you get a better handle on the bird. So we're going to be focusing on the basic shapes and then breaking it down into sub-shapes and then adding detail at the end. So after all that's done, okay, and you have your bird, you have your sketch. So here is my sketch. I got a little copy on it. What I had to do now was I had to transfer this drawing with this section onto the final paper, and we just do that with the light table. And by the way, if you notice, it's black and white. So the camera is picking up color from the lights, and I really wanted to show how this looked like in black and white ink. So I put a black and white overlay onto the camera just so you guys can see that nice and clear. The second thing, this is going to be quite large. So there's over 50 pieces. This is going to go up onto the wall, and we really want the focus to be on the birds. So this is going to be largely black and white, except the birds are going to be colored, and we'll look at some textural effects that we can do with watercolor. There's other things you can do with colored pencil. And you want your lines to be quite thick. So for the branches, when I take this in and put it up against the wall, I'll step back about 10 to 15 feet, and even this might need to be thicker. So I might have to go back through this again and think of some of the lines, but I'm going to go take a look to see how it looks. One thing you do want to have is a nice thick holding line around your bird, because this has to pop off the page. It has to stand out. And again, how thick does that holding line need to be? I don't know yet. And again, that holding line is just that exterior outline, that thick outline. And again, that makes it easier to see from a distance. It stands out more. And I don't think we're going to be putting any textural detail into the tree, because we really want this to stand out, and we really want the birds throughout the tree to be the main focus. And that's why that's going to be the only part that's colored. So this is the end of part one. Part two will be coloring this, and I'll be covering that next. When that video is done, I'll have the two videos up, and if I can make it short enough where I can have one video that kind of compresses part one and part two, I'll do that too. And until next time, this is your art teacher, Mr. Aguilar, and I hope we have fun on this project.